You didn't click this by accident. Something inside you brought you here. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're carrying too much. Maybe you're still wondering why the love you gave wasn't enough to make them stay. Before you scroll, just know this. You were never hard to love. They just loved you wrong. And you need to hear why. If you don't have time now, leave a like and hit subscribe so you can return when your heart is ready to hear what it's been trying to tell you all along. You're here, not because you want to be, but because you've carried something too heavy for too long. And tonight, you don't want answers. You want quiet. You want to be heard, even if you're not saying anything. So don't worry. I'm not here to fix you. I'm just here to sit beside the version of you that no one else sees. The tired one, the invisible one, the one who still wonders. Why wasn't I enough? Was I too much? Did I make love too hard? No, you were never hard to love. They just loved you wrong. Let me say it again, not for your ears, but for the part of your heart that still doesn't believe it. You were never hard to love. They just loved you wrong. People like you, the feelers, the deep ones, the ones who love like it's oxygen, you often attract those who only know how to inhale, but never how to give back. They come to your light, not because they admire it, but because they need it. And once they warm their hands, they leave, as if the fire was meant to burn just for them. And you sit there, flames flickering, asking yourself what you did wrong. But let me tell you something quietly, the way no one told you before. Some people don't recognize real love because they grew up in hunger. They mistook chaos for passion. They mistook withdrawal for desire. They mistook your consistency for boredom. They thought you were too much because you showed up every time. They thought you were needy because you wanted connection. They thought you were fragile because you felt deeply. But here's the twist. They didn't reject you. They rejected what they couldn't understand. They mistook your loyalty for weakness, your affection for dependence, your presence for pressure. But that's not your fault. That's not your flaw. That's projection. And it's a common language among the emotionally unavailable. Do you remember how you softened around them? How your voice would bend to soothe their silence? How your needs always waited until theirs were met? That wasn't weakness. That was love. Your kind of love. Gentle, full-bodied, patient. But they didn't know what to do with something so pure. So instead of rising to meet you, they made you feel like you were too high to reach. Let me ask you something hard, and you don't need to answer it now. When did you start thinking that love had to hurt to be real? When did you decide that loving harder meant being loved better? A pause, a soft instrumental builds in the background, slow piano, low notes. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Carl Jung. But how do you choose when your heart is still echoing with what they didn't say? When closure never came? When your worth still feels like a question instead of a truth? Here's the paradox. You keep trying to understand someone who barely tried to understand you. You keep rehearsing the goodbye, hoping it will sound different if you whisper it enough times. But my dear, you don't need more clarity. You need more compassion for yourself. Let me take you somewhere, gently, back to the beginning. Do you remember the first time you felt unlovable? Maybe it wasn't them. Maybe it was way before. Maybe it was a parent who looked through you instead of at you. A friend who disappeared without explanation. A moment you cried and no one came. That's where it started. The voice. The one that said, "You're too much. You're not enough. You're hard to keep." That voice wasn't born inside you. It was planted by someone who didn't know how to love, or maybe wasn't loved either. But you watered it with silence, with self-doubt, with trying harder and harder every time someone left. You became the one who fixed, who forgave, who folded yourself smaller just to make others more comfortable. You thought if you loved better, they'd love you back the same. But love isn't a transaction, and worth isn't earned by bending. It just is. You just are. Don't apologize for feeling something deeply. That's where real beauty lives. Nizar Kabani, Todders, translated. Yes, even your heartbreak is a form of beauty. It means you tried, you dared, you believed, even when the evidence was missing. And that's rare. People like you are rare. And they were never ready for rare. And they were never ready for rare. Can I remind you of something softly? The person who made you feel like a burden was already carrying their own. They didn't know how to receive your love because they never received their own. They rejected your openness because it reminded them of what they shut down long ago. Your love was a mirror, and they didn't like what they saw. But that's not your fault, and it never was. You gave more than just love. You gave presence. You gave your eyes fully. You gave time without clocks, silence without pressure, space that felt like home. But they didn't know what to do with peace, because chaos was the only thing they ever learned to trust. They confused your calm for coldness, your honesty for attack, your boundaries for rejection. So they ran, or they shut down, or they blamed you. And like many who love deeply, you asked the wrong question. What did I do wrong? You should have asked, why did they only know how to hurt? Some people don't leave because you're unworthy. They leave because you're too real, too steady, too available, too emotionally naked. You scared them, not because you were dangerous, but because you were safe. And safety requires surrender. And surrender is terrifying for people who only survived by control. They said you were too emotional. They were numb. They said you were clingy. They were avoidant. They said you overthought. They didn't think enough. They told you, directly or silently, that your love was a problem. But darling, no one ever got destroyed by love itself. People get destroyed by fear, by distance, by emotional negligence wrapped as independence. Let me tell you a story. It's short, but it might sound familiar. Once, there was someone who had so much to give, they poured themselves into every cup handed to them. Even the cracked ones, even the ones that never offered a sip in return. They kept pouring, even when their hands shook. One day, they looked down and realized they were empty. No one noticed, because they had made giving look so easy, so natural. And so, they disappeared. Not loudly, not angrily, but gently. And the world said, where did they go? They used to be so full of love. But no one asked, who filled their cup? You were that person, weren't you? The emotional caregiver, the safe space, the one who kept the relationship alive even when the other person already checked out. And now that you've stopped, now that you're no longer performing emotional CPR, they notice. They come back with half-hearted words, empty apologies, breadcrumbs of what if. But you're different now. Not colder, not bitter, just tired. Tired of proving that your love is not a threat. Tired of asking to be met halfway. tired of shrinking to be digestible. Love isn't supposed to consume you. It's supposed to complete you. Gibran Khalil Gibran. Adapted. But here's the hard truth. You can't teach someone how to love if they're still learning how not to fear it. You can't fix a person who is comfortable with broken things, including themselves. You were never meant to be their healer. You were meant to be their mirror. And they smashed the mirror because they hated the reflection. And yet, here you are, still wondering if you were too intense, still thinking maybe if you had said less, asked for less, felt less, they would have stayed. But deep down, you know, if they truly saw you, they wouldn't have left. Because what you offered was what they claimed to want. But their nervous system was wired to flee what they long for. You didn't fail at love. You simply gave it to someone who wasn't ready. And that's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their wounds. You were not too emotional. You were emotionally present. You were not too sensitive. You were deeply attuned. You were not too much. You were finally enough for someone who never thought they deserved it. But now, it's your turn to love someone who doesn't make you doubt yourself, to sit in silence that doesn't feel like punishment, to be in a relationship where your softness is sacred, not inconvenient. And that someone might just be you, for now, until the rest of the world catches up to how deeply you feel. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Rumi, yes, even this heartbreak, even this ache you're still carrying, even the tears that no one saw, they're not signs of weakness. They're evidence that you feel fully. And that feeling, that is your gift. That is your alchemy. So tonight, you don't need to move on. You don't need to get over it. You don't even need to forgive them yet. All you need to do is this. Stay with yourself in this moment, fully, without judgment, without fixing. Because the parts of you they couldn't hold are the exact parts that will hold you. They loved you wrong. But you loved right. You loved deeply, bravely, with your whole soul. Don't lose that because they couldn't meet you there. Don't go numb. Don't become them. Become you. More you than ever before. If these words have found a quiet corner in your heart, if tonight's soft reflections offered even a breath of peace, please consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel. Because the stories we'll share next, they are profound. They touch the unseen parts of us all, and they carry the weight of healing we all deserve. Your presence here is not just watching. It's a part of your own quiet courage, a step toward the light waiting within. And if something in this touched you deeply, don't let it be a one-time moment. Come back. Let these words meet you again, on a different night, in a different silence. Sometimes, the heart needs to hear it more than once to truly believe it. Thank you for trusting me to be your companion through these whispered moments. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and rest well. Now, we'll leave you with calming music to soothe your nerves and bring a soft kind of peace to your inner world.
you.